It's been 3 years since Apple called this their most pro iPhone ever. So how's that holding up? This is the iPhone 14 Pro 3 years later. Let's start with the design. Honestly, the iPhone 14 Pro still looks great. The stainless steel frame gives it that solid premium feel, and the matte glass back still feels super nice in the hand. It's not the lightest phone by any means at 206 grams, and not the thinnest either at 7.9 millimeters. In fact, after using some of the newer titanium phones, you can really feel the difference. This thing is dense. But there's something reassuring about that weight. It feels like you're holding a piece of quality hardware and not just a slab of glass. The design language hasn't changed much over the years, which is both a good and bad thing. Good because your iPhone 14 Pro doesn't feel outdated. Bad because if you put it next to a newer iPhone, it's hard to tell them apart unless you really know what you're looking for. Durability wise, it's aged nicely. I've had mine in and out of cases. It's taken a few accidental drops, and other than some small scratches on the frame and the display and a little bit of the paint wearing out, it's still in great shape. The stainless steel frame does pick up a lot of fingerprints, but honestly, I really like the contrast between the matte glass back and this glossy frame. Now, one place where you're going to notice the age of the iPhone 14 Pro is that lightning port. Everything else I have uses USB Type-C, but just to charge this phone, I have to carry a whole different cable. It is USB 2.0, so if you're transferring data with the external SSD, the speeds are really bad. And when you're paying upwards of $1,000 for a Pro phone, it's just sad. Now, the display. Still one of the best parts of this phone. It's a 6.1-inch 120Hz ProMotion panel. It's buttery smooth, and it's one of those things that once you get used to, you can't go back. And the 2000 nits peak brightness is still up there with newer phones. It's perfectly usable outdoors in bright sunlight, and you can read things on the screen without any issues. Then there's the dynamic island. Remember when it was the headline feature? 3 years later, it's fine. It's useful sometimes, like for timers, music controls, and calls, but it's not something that really changes the experience. It's more of a nice touch than a major feature now. But overall, the display still feels flagship level. Watching videos, scrolling through the UI, editing photos, it feels smooth and sharp. Now, battery life is where the age starts to show a bit. The 14 Pro did not have spectacular battery life even when it came out, and 3 years later, things have just gotten worse. I was struggling with battery life, so I got my battery replaced in June, and things did get a little better. And in October, my battery health is at 98%. If you're still on the original battery on your 14 Pro, you're probably below the 85% mark, and in some time you're going to get the replace battery service message. If you plan to keep using the 14 Pro for another few years, I'd say get a new battery. But with the recent iOS 26 update, battery life has been really bad. I am struggling to get a day. Even with light use sometimes, I'm looking for the charger by evening. So yeah, battery life on the iPhone 14 Pro is not that great. Talking about performance, the iPhone 14 Pro came with Apple's A16 Bionic chip and 6 gigabytes of RAM. And 3 years later, it's still incredibly capable. Day-to-day use, zero complaints. Apps launch instantly, multitasking is smooth, and animations are still fluid. Even for heavier stuff like gaming or video editing, it still performs like a champ. Sure, the newer chips are faster on paper, but honestly, in real-world use, you're not going to notice a night and day difference. Apple's optimization has always been nice, although I can't really say that for iOS 26 because there's a bunch of bugs. But still, the performance is really good. Now, one feature you're going to miss out on is Apple Intelligence, because that's reserved for phones with at least 8 gigabytes of RAM, and the 14 Pro comes with only 6. Personally, I've never felt like I'm missing out on something major. Apple Intelligence is not ready yet. It's not out there. So yeah, that's that. Now, in terms of thermal management, the 14 Pro does get warm sometimes, but nothing too crazy. Of course, if you're going to push it with higher-end games or video editing or just a bunch of multitasking, it can get hot sometimes. But apart from that, I've never had issues with this phone overheating while doing normal things. The cameras, still really impressive. Even by today's standards, the 48 megapixel main sensor still produces sharp, detailed images, and you have the option to shoot in RAW, which gives you advanced controls later in editing. Skin tones are natural, the colors are rich and consistent, and Apple's processing still nails that balanced look between detail and dynamic range. In good lighting, it's hard to tell the difference between this and a newer iPhone unless you zoom in and start pixel peeping. Low light performance though is not that great, especially on the telephoto and ultra-wide camera, since they are 12 megapixel sensors, and even on the 48 megapixel main camera you can start to see a lot of noise when the lighting dips down. But for video, on the other hand, the iPhone 14 Pro is still really solid. It's got really nice, sharp 4K 60 FPS video. If you're a content creator or if you just like to shoot a lot of video on your phone, the 14 Pro is still a really good choice. Connectivity wise, the iPhone 14 Pro is still a 5G phone with Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.3, and yeah, personally I've had no issues there. A couple other features which you'll miss out on. Number one is the action button, which was added to the iPhone 15 Pro, replacing the alert slider, and number two, the camera control button, which was added to the iPhone 16 Pro. And again, these are not things that will impact your experience in day-to-day life, and as far as I've heard, people don't really like the camera control button. The action button is genuinely useful since you can use it like alert slider but also have other things programmed to it. And for the average user, it doesn't really matter. Now, charging speeds is another area where the iPhone 14 Pro shows its age. It takes about 30 minutes to get to 50% and close to an hour to completely charge the phone to 100%, and you've got 15-watt wireless charging. Alright, so 3 years later, is the iPhone 14 Pro still worth it? Honestly, yeah, if you already own it, there's no urgent reason to upgrade unless you're chasing the latest design or camera features. The performance is still great, the cameras still deliver, and the display still looks really good. The only downsides are the poor battery life, the bulkier build, the older lightning port, and you miss out on little features like the camera control button and the action button. Considering how well it's held up overall, I'd say the 14 Pro has aged better than most phones from its time. It's still fast, still reliable, and still feels like a proper flagship even in 2025. So if you're thinking about buying one secondhand or just holding on to yours a little longer, I'd say go for it. It still has plenty of life left.